for educational critical review and reaction is the late, great Jordan Maxwell.
I was fascinated with the wisdom and the knowledge of religion and the occult sciences and all of the ancient teachings of the world that the Gnostics were aware of that we today aren't. And so I know that Gnosticism is something very important to understand. The word Gnostic simply means in the Greek language to know. And that's in opposition to something which is referred to in Christianity as a believer. So in Christianity, if you go to a new church and they are aware that you are a Christian, they will ask you, oh, how long have you been a believer? And there's all kinds of books written for Christians using the term believer, the believer's house of faith and the believer's book and the this and that believer. And so Christians are referred to as believers. That should tell you something. That's a tip-off. Because when Christians are referred to as believers, it implies they don't know, they believe. And I've said it so many times in the past that governments are not interested in believing something. Governments tap your phones, they tap your life, they tap you electronically. They spy on people. We have agencies called the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. They investigate to see what the real truth is. You have something called the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. And so governments around the world are not interested in what you believe, what you think. They don't care about that. Governments want to know for sure what you're doing. So they have intelligence agencies and research societies and eavesdrop on people to see what they're really talking about. So the point being that there's a world of difference between being a Gnostic, which in Greek means to know, as opposed to a Christian who is a believer. So one of my dearest friends in this world that would go back a long time ago as friends is an expert on the Gnostic tradition, the Gnostic teachings, etc. And I want to talk with him a little bit about that tonight, along with some other things that we want to talk about. So my guest tonight is a dear friend, Paul Tice. That's T-I-C-E, Paul Tice, in San Diego. His bookstore is called The, T-H-E, thebooktree.com. Are you there, Paul?
Yeah, we are here.
Okay, good. The reason why I'm so adamant about promoting your bookstore is because I am fascinated with wisdom and knowledge and understanding all my life. And I know the value of finding some old golden stuff, that's been lost or nobody even knows. Like when you go to UCLA or County USC or San Diego University, and you go down in what they call the stacks. Mm-hmm. You go down into the old book, all the thousands and thousands of old books that are in the reference sections of universities, and you start going through and you find extraordinary, really fascinating stuff on secret societies and cults and symbols. And
that's how you did your research. I mean, that's what made you a preeminent researcher of basically you're probably the foremost expert on ancient religions and modern conspiracies, because you went to these places and dug out all this stuff that nobody else knew was even there. And then now you've got all these other people who have been sort of regurgitating all this amazing research. And a lot of people don't understand that you're the grandfather of all this kind of information for the most part. I mean, other people have put in a few other pieces of the puzzle, but a large portion of the puzzle has been put together by you, and a lot of credit has never been given. But I know what you've done, and what you're saying right now, and these resources and going into these. I mean, we would go into there was this one seminary in Pasadena where we were let in basically the back door, and we would just photocopy all these volumes of stuff that no one else had access to. I mean, if you really want the information and you know where to look, there is a ton of good stuff out there that would otherwise never see the light of day.
You're right. You're right. We used to go to these big seminary libraries and go downstairs, and they just got thousands of old volumes on religions and cults and ideologies and fascinating books with incredibly important pictures, diagrams of where religions have come from, where the concepts and ideas and belief systems originated, and all the documentation of all of this stuff. And you and I would, could spend hours just mulling through tons of incredible books.
Yeah, 5 cents a page at the copy machines, That's what it was. I've got bound stuff that you will never see anywhere else. That is bound in my personal library. That came from these stacks that, these books were never really for sale except maybe to universities, and that's how we got our hands on them. But the information is mind-blowing.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, heavens, yes.
And so that's the kind of research material that you used to bring together this kind of information to the public. I mean, and a lot of people don't know where to look. You did. You still do. So.
Oh, well, I just always was fascinated by the dark stuff, all the dark information and all the secret stuff that nobody knows about, all the dark teachings and connections between religions and governments and sciences and how the world really works. And
you're not going to find this on your Kindle. Sorry, pal.
No, it ain't going to happen. Nope, not going to happen. And I'm fascinated with all of this. And then the more I looked, the more I found.
Anyway, Paul, I wanted to talk with you tonight about Gnosticism, because so much today of the world is covered with religion. And in religion, there's a word that is used for people who involve themselves in churches and synagogues and mosques. The word for all people and going to houses of worship are referred to, generally speaking, as believers. I remember going to Christian churches when I was a kid, and people would ask me, oh, you're a believer, are you? And how long have you been a believer? The word is believer, and it always struck me as strange why Christians and others are called believers. Because when they go to their churches or synagogues, they're referred to as believers. And I don't like that word in relation to religion. I don't want to believe anything. I'd like to know the truth. If there is such a thing, I'd like to know the real story. I don't want to believe. And I get that idea from the government we live under. The U.S. is not interested in believing anything. The U.S. has FBI, CIA, NSA, and God knows about 50 more secret societies and secret organizations in the government for one purpose only, not to believe what's going on, but to damn well know what's going on. And so they don't care to believe you're all right. They're going to find out, tapping your lines and doing all the research on you. So they don't want to believe. They want to know. Well, the same thing with me. I don't want to believe anything. I want to know for sure. Well, the only way you're going to know is to take the time, and if you don't do it, you're not ever going to get to anywhere. Take the time to read and study and go back into the ancient world and read where all of these ideas and belief systems have come from, who started these different beliefs in different churches and religions. That's the kind of information that Paul has at the bookstore in San Diego. It is filled with brilliant and beautiful, incredibly important books on the origins of belief systems of this world. And my goodness, there's all kinds of stuff on UFOs and aliens and churches and cults in the Middle East and ancient history. Just an incredible array of wisdom and knowledge. So I just wanted everyone to know that this is a very important bookstore in San Diego, The Book Tree. So Paul, in relation to the subject Gnosticism, Gnostic simply means in Greek, if I'm not mistaken, simply means to know something, which is a little different than Christianity is to believe something. And I know that you, Paul, have been studying Gnosticism for many, many years. Maybe you could tell the people some of the interesting background of the Gnostic belief, the Gnostic system. Gnosticism, what is it?
Well, there's two different levels in any religious belief system, and any religion will have these two levels, which is, first and foremost, those who are believers, as you mentioned before. And then there's a very deeper level, a very deep spiritual level, and it kind of reflects the very essence of yourself or your soul. And a lot of people are, they turn very fundamentalist because they've had these beliefs pounded into their mindset for years and years and years, and they really believe strongly in what they, what they've been told. And so, at the same time, at some point, you have the ability to break through the simply believing certain things and experience something. Instead of being told what to believe, you can experience God for yourself because you have that connection to God within you. So, but if you approach a person who hasn't had these kind of breakthroughs yet, then they will simply tell you, don't bother me with facts. I've got my beliefs. So,
and the Apostle Paul, was, he wrote close to, one half of the New Testament are the writings of the Apostle Paul. And, Paul was a Gnostic. He was not a Christian in the truest sense of the word. Mm-hmm. He never knew anything, especially didn't know the person Jesus, if there was a person named Jesus, but he didn't know any person named Jesus personally. And all of his terms that the Apostle Paul put into his writings in the New Testament, all of them come directly out of the Gnostic tradition. And so it was as if the Apostle Paul, or the one called Saul of Tarsus, was just telling you, and he even said that a couple of times in the scriptures. I remember one scripture where the Apostle Paul said, whether it is God or the angels or the Great Spirit speaking through me, or maybe it's just me, I don't know. There is a perfect example of Gnosticism, where, the Apostle Paul is saying, I don't know if it's God speaking through me, or if it's a great spirit that's inspiring me. I don't know what it is, but here's what I'm telling you. Well, that's Gnosticism. I don't need to have somebody tell me something is true. So just knowing, in Greek is called Gnosticism, to know something. A Gnostic tradition, as opposed to the Christian, Judeo, and Jewish and the Islamic beliefs, because these are all what we call belief systems.
Yeah,
they don't know, they just believe.
Yeah, so, the great thing about this is that, we have sort of like a divine power, a divine spark, that we are in fact beings of light, and that we have come from another place into this world, and there's a parable that they teach. It's called the Hymn of the Pearl, or also known as the Hymn of the Robe of Glory. And it's basically a reflection of us coming into the world, but it talks about how this young man is sent on a mission, and he's going to the land of Egypt, and he's going to come down, and his mission is to find a pearl that is guarded by a dragon and to bring it back home. But once he gets down into the land of Egypt, which is actually this earth, he forgets what he's there for. And we're all running around not knowing, in large part why we're here, who we are. And so in this parable, he's down there, and, after a time, an eagle comes down and reminds him of what he's there for, and he wakes up. And, those who are enlightened as beings of light, they do wake up. And that's what happens when you wake up and you become enlightened. You realize, wait a minute, I'm not from here. And so, after that, you're aware of the work that you have to do. We're spiritual beings. We're here to do some spiritual things. We're here to learn who we are. We're here to help spread, kindness and other things like that. And so, he wakes up, and actually by doing this kind of spiritual work, we actually do some work, and then you're able to go back to the place where you are, and when you arrive there, the robe of glory is now bequested upon you, and it is said that you have a twin in this other world, which has grown with your growth in this world, which is one of the reasons why you come down, because we're down here on this earth, which is a very low material vibration compared to the spirit world. And so we have the opposites here, light and dark, night and day. We've got good and evil. We can work with this stuff down here. And as we do, we are able to progress. And then there's another part of us in this other world that is watching us, and people say that we have guardian angels or we have a higher self. Well, yes, we do. That's because we're here working, in part for our higher growth. And once we go back there and we able to go back into this other realm, then it all makes sense why we've come down here, what we're here for, and all that stuff. Now, this is something that the Gnostics teach. It's not something you'll find in the church. Church wanted to be the mouthpiece for that, and they didn't want you to be experiencing this growth for yourself because they were the intermediary. They wanted control of you, and they needed you to fight their wars for them or do whatever and collect your taxes, whatever they needed from you at the time. But from your own personal, deep spiritual point of view and growth, we're here for a reason. And the Gnostics were able to beautifully talk about these things, and some of the older Gnostic texts have since been rediscovered. We're starting now, centuries later, to figure all this out. And so I think we've outgrown some of our religions, whereby, the God of the Bible is a very despotic and mean character, whereby divine feminine gave balance to the entire spiritual outlook of things. And without the divine feminine, you've got a mean and nasty God instead. I mean, we became a mean and nasty culture in a mean and nasty world. And the Gnostics can provide balance. And as we learn about how to treat others and include everyone, we're also growing in that spiritual way. So once we go back to this other realm, because we all end up back there, then we've accomplished something. So that's kind of what the whole Gnostic thing is in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I can see why the churches would not want you reading this kind of what we could call free thought literature. In other words, just read educational documentary, go to encyclopedias and reference works and read about the world you live in, and go to, and if you can, go to different countries and see how the people live, and understand a very important part of your religious life. It depends on where you were born. I mean, if you happen to have been born in Africa, you would have an African outlook on theology and religion of the culture you were born into. If you happen by chance to have been born in China, then you would have an Oriental and Chinese view of spiritual questions and concepts and ideas. Unless you were born in America and Canada, and you would have, your viewpoint. So this is why people don't realize where you were born has a lot to do with who you are and what you believe. It doesn't mean you're right. Because if you're the one that has the real truth, then that means the rest of the earth is wrong. And you are right. And then when you look at your life and the decisions you make, and if you're the only one on the earth who is right, then we're in trouble, because humans are continually making mistakes. So in relation to this subject, I thought it was interesting, is to explain the difference between theology and mythology. Theology goes back to the Greek word theo, or T-H-E-O, or T-H-E-O, is theo, which is God in Greek. And so the study is ology. And so the study of God, or the subject of God, is called theology. While there is another school of thought called mythology. And I have always said that the difference between theology and mythology is really very simple. It's whatever it is that you, wherever you were born and whatever particular religion or belief system you have, that you can call theology. That's the study of God. And since you are the world's foremost intellectual, brilliant mind, whatever it is that you personally believe to be true has to be the real truth. So therefore, anything you teach or anything you believe in our teaching is called theology, or the worship of God. While your neighbor who lives down the street and works with you, he has a different belief system, so therefore his belief system is what you call mythology. It's a story. The word myth simply means a story. Mm-hmm. And so he's got a story that he believes, and obviously it's just a story. It has no basis in fact whatsoever, no matter who he is, no matter what race, creed, or color. It's a mythology. It's all nonsense. Why? Because you've got the truth. You have the real truth. Mm-hmm. So you've got the theology, and he has a mythology. That's how you tell the difference. You have the whole truth, and everybody else in the world can go to hell, because nobody knows anything except you. And so, this is why today we have the frustration and the anger and the bitterness and all of the lower ideas of mankind, religion, philosophy, occultism, because it seems as though the whole entire earth is caught up in the same problem, that no matter where you are born and accepting into your life that culture and that belief system, then you grow up and find out other people don't believe that way at all. And before you know it, there's an argument, and that argument leads to fighting, and that fighting leads to war. And so that's why the world is in the shape it's in today, because people believe things, but very few people are studious enough to know. Go back to an encyclopedia or reference work and do some homework and find out where things come from, what the words mean. Now you are a Gnostic, one who knows, as opposed to being someone who believes. So that's this is what I wanted people to understand. And there's a lot more we could talk about in relation to Gnosticism.
Over 50 years of speaking to people around the world, the one thing that people, generally speaking, do not want, because people will always support what they want. They will not support what they don't want. The one thing people will not support ever is the truth and the light. You don't want to hear the truth about you. So go to the baseball games and the football games and all your silly alcohol and your parties, and bring your beer and your pretzels, and because now everybody's like you. We're a democracy. Everybody's like you. You're ignorant, ill-informed, unread, dim-witted, religious goofball. Well, so is everybody else. So you fit in just fine. Everybody loves you. Unless, of course, you are into the truth and the light. And in that case, nobody wants to hear you. They're not inviting you to any parties. They don't want to hear from anything about you. They don't want to hear this truth and the light. The people always love lies. They are never going to accept the truth and the light.